So the 7th of November is around the corner. The 7th is the cut-off date for nominations. ANC branches, I understand, are well underway nominating their preferred candidates to take the organization forward. In fact, they're holding successful nominations. Remember, previously there were issues with a lot of the BGMs being disqualified. There was a lackluster approach, really, from branches of the ANC to deal with this particular process. But seemingly things are getting underway. They're almost where they need to be as far as the threshold is concerned. That cut-off date on the 7th of November, I think, will actually go through. They've had a series of postponements with this particular cut-off date, but it will go through. On the 12th of November, they will then consolidate those nominations. I think the elections agency, election observers, the officials, as well as NEC members will be part and parcel of that process where they open the boxes and look at what nominations have come through. What is it that the branches want? That will be followed by the vetting and screening of candidates. That is to follow on the 18th of November. It's also during this phase where they will go to those who are nominated and ask, are you available? Where they'll ask for CVs. I want to look at some of the CVs of these particular leads, but they'll look at the CVs, ask who's available, and that's where candidates are likely to accept nominations in the lead up towards December. And then on the 22nd, there'll be an appeal process. Those who have complaints will go via the Secretary General's office, which brings in a quagmire for Paul Mashatile, but I'll explain it a little bit later. But they go via the SGO to the appeals, to the different committees to put their cases before the ANC about what they think has been done wrong. And by the 24th, the ANC wants to be done with all of that to then publish the names that will ultimately be put on the ballot. Remember, though, that when the conference is on between the 16th and the 20th of December, nominations can still come from the floor. Names can rise from the floor. I know some of Paul Mashatile's supporters would love to see his name come up from the floor when the issue of president of the ANC comes up. He is currently contesting the deputy presidency. In fact, interestingly enough, somebody from that camp was saying to me this very week that they feel otherwise, because Paul Mashatile, unlike a Ronald Lamola, who's openly contesting, who's conducting interviews, unlike a Mamuloko Kubai, again, who's availing himself out in the public, is hampered by the fact that he is the acting secretary of the ANC. His office will have to process complaints, and some of the complaints might actually be about branches and processes that nominated Mashatile. So that's why you don't see or hear a lot from Mashatile. His program, when I look at the political program, is hardly present. It's hardly active. And they want to make an argument that there is a reason why this is happening. But what this could also do is produce better numbers for maybe a Ronald Lamola. So maybe Lamola's chances of getting on the ballot are increasing as this happens. I'm not 100% sure about Mamuluko Kubai's chances at the moment. And not because I don't think she's incapable or any other reason, except for her name is not resonating in conversations that I'm having with ANC members. We observe a lot of the branches, we observe a lot of the members, and the name doesn't come up nearly as much as I think it should in the race for deputy president. Lamola's comes up. Paul Mashatile's, I've been saying it for months on end, definitely dominates the conversation around the deputy president. So as we move towards December, a lot of us journalists are speaking to the different players, so the different candidates, the different lobby groups, which is why I'm saying Mamuluko's name doesn't come up as much as I think it should at this point of the race. But we'll see. But we're speaking to a lot of the leaders. This week I spoke to Fikile Mbalula, Mr. Razmataz. But as I keep saying, Mr. I'm never on time. He doesn't know how to respect time. But I spoke to Fikile Mbalula about his campaign. Fikile is in the running for Secretary General of the ANC. He's up against the likes of Mdumseni Ntuli. He's up against Phumulo Masualle from the Eastern Cape. I'm not sure about Fikile Mbalula's chances. I think his name came late to the game. I asked him about it. I spoke to him as part of my podcast for EWN, Politricking with Tshidi Madia, go look that up. He was late to the game, but I believe he is getting some nominations. He is on a slate, on a lineup that's associated with the president of the ANC, Cyril Ramaphosa. But what was interesting for me about the conversation is what makes Mbalula think he's fit for purpose? What makes Mbax think he's the right person to run that office. The SGO, I think, is often underestimated, but the SGO, the Secretary General's office, is really the heartbeat of the organization. That's where the day-to-day running of the ANC lies. That's the engine of the governing party. Mbaks did make a go for it in 2012. It did not succeed. So I find it strange that in so many years, he hasn't seemingly taken himself seriously enough to now want to come up and be taken seriously enough to run an organization like a Secretary General's office. But let's see how that plays itself out. What was interesting also is how Mdumiseni Ntuli, a competitor and opponent's name, came up in the interview with Mbalula. I didn't bring up Mdumiseni Ntuli, he did. And he brought him up to say Mdumiseni is playing PR via the media, that he's fooling the rest of us because he is part of a slate, actually. He is being pushed and moved by people. I want to make that comment that he's actually being pushed by people from Gauteng who can't boldly say it because of their relationship with KZN. KZN doesn't want Ntuli. KZN wants to put forward a president, and that president is William Kize. KZN wants to put forward a Phumulo Masualle as Secretary General of the ANC. So there's interesting movements around that SGO. Going back to Mbalula, for me, Mbalula mentions Mdu because that's actually where the competition lies. Mbalula versus Phumulo Masualle could take Masualle in a heartbeat. I don't think Masualle has the necessary charisma to capture even ANC candidates, or delegates rather, when they're at conference, whilst Mbaks can easily take on a Masualle. But when it comes to Mdumiseni Ntuli is favored in essence, in part because of his youthfulness. Some would make an argument that he doesn't have a long streak of leadership. Never mind that he didn't successfully retain power in KZN. But I think for the people who love him here in Gauteng, the so-called home of mature politics, it doesn't really matter. His name does resonate, and I think that Mdumiseni will end up on the ballot. I think Mbaks might, and I think Phumulo, with the backing of a KZN and a Limpopo and parts of the Eastern Cape, will definitely do that. The race for chair is also quite interesting because I'm not so sure about Gwere's position. And Gwere is a master politician. I respect it and I see it, but I don't think that this time around the space and time allows for Gwere to return as chair of the ANC. I think that there will be interesting outcomes between him, David Masondo, who's seemingly the unlikely candidate, but also finding expression with younger people in the ANC, and of course then Matabata, action commander from Limpopo, because again, Matabata, like Masualle, like Mashatile, come with a block of provinces that have a relationship and want to see them emerging in the ANC's top six. But all of those things we'll see later. Before I go though, the Manglemoose that are coalitions in Gauteng, I can't leave without talking about them. So this week, Ekurhuleni attempted to elect a mayor. A few weeks ago, I said Ekurhuleni was told that you're making a mistake with that motion, that the province told the region withdraw the motion, and the region defied the province, went ahead, successfully removed Tanya Campbell, the DA Ekurhuleni mayor. But now the time to elect a mayor is the problem, because negotiations between the ANC and the EFF were not completed, because people feel Mzwandile Masina, former mayor and current Ekurhuleni ANC chair, is acting with himself in mind and no one else. So, long story short, the conversations went sideways. The attempts to find one another, maybe elect an EFF mayor and Ekurhuleni this week, failed. They're deadlocked. Now they have to go back to the drawing table or start afresh, really. They have to probably start negotiations anew. And the difficult thing about this is that not only does it have ramifications for Ekurhuleni, but whatever the outcome is in Ekurhuleni next week will absolutely have an impact on Johannesburg. The ANC had managed to clinch back control in Johannesburg, but failed to follow due processes, which was challenged by Mpho Phalatse, Dr. Mpho Phalatse, who's back in the mayoral seat, led to the ANC losing control. They thought that they could hang on for a few more weeks and gain it back, but Mzwandile Masina and his RSC's actions in Ekurhuleni might actually mean that Mpho Phalatse remains mayor of Johannesburg for a little bit longer. So it's a messy affair as far as coalitions are concerned. But always remember, whatever's happening with coalitions, it's not just about the regions, it's not just about the metros. It does have a place and a play in the provincial politics as well as the national politics.